How do I read the Bible? It's a question that more people ask than you might realize. Here's a way to get you started coming up on the Accessible Faith Project. Hi there, I'm John, and welcome to the Accessible Faith Project. If you're looking for insights into the Bible, faith, and history in ways that engage your brain regardless of your faith stance, then please hit subscribe on that little bell icon so you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. So what has your experience been in reading the Bible? Did you get all the way through? Did you get tripped up anywhere? Please let me know in the comments section down below. According to a handful of studies, the majority of Americans have attempted to read the Bible, and yet only about 1 in 5 claim to have successfully read it from cover to cover. Even then, the biggest mistake that most of us make when trying to read this ancient collection of documents is to try to read it like a novel. But that's not your fault. After all, the Bible, when packaged like this, looks and feels like any other book that you might pick up at the store or at the library. And so you might open it up on the left side and read, "In the beginning," and so it goes. But this only gets us so far. By the time that most of us get to Leviticus, they've cured their insomnia, crashed out, and either given up entirely or skipped to the end only to find all that weird and scary stuff in Revelation. Has this been you? Don't worry, you're not alone, and it's not your fault either. The Bible is not a conventional book, and we do both you and it a disservice if we treat it that way. Regardless of what your faith stance happens to be, the influence of the Bible on the world for good or for ill is undeniable, and it is important to know how this collection of ancient works fits into history. And so whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, here are a few tips that might be able to help you the next time you're tempted to pick it up. Number 1, the Bible is not a book. Rather, it is a collection of works that themselves are referred to as books. Depending upon what faith tradition you are most familiar with, there are anywhere from 39 to 66 to 73 books in the Bible. And how that variable number came to be is worth several videos alone. Originally, these books were smaller documents, written on scrolls and ordered together usually by how big they were, not by when they were written. Because the Bible is not a single book, it should not be read that way. Think of it more like an anthology that is not arranged particularly well. Point number 2. Not all the books are single works. Not only that, a number of the books within this are themselves a collection of different types of literature. Exodus is a perfect example of an epic story with some really dramatic and spectacular stuff that suddenly shift gears into the tedium of ancient legal text. Worse yet, it doesn't even give you any warning at all. Number 3. Everything is a translation. Depending upon what part of the Bible you're reading, the original language is either Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek. It means unless you are reading these passages in these languages, you are at the mercy of the translators and their biases. Not only that, certain words and turns of phrases don't translate well across cultures, languages, and time. That's okay, we can get around it, but it takes a bit of work. And a good start is if a phrase does not make sense, it pays to check out how a different translation treats it. Number 4, each book has its own style and purpose. Chances are you wouldn't sit down with a songbook in the same way that you might cozy up with a novel. Study property law at a desk with a pencil and notebook in hand? That's a good idea. But it just doesn't feel right if you're doing the same when immersed in a sweeping adventure epic filled with shipwrecks and prison breaks. Learning the style and purpose of each book and each section will also help you a great deal in reading it. Point number 5. These books all have stories behind them. Whatever you may understand or believe about the Bible, the reality is that these ancient documents are a reflection of the time and place in which they were written. All of them have a complex history of how they were written, who wrote them, and how they survived to become part of this centuries-old collection. We may need to set aside some of our preconceived ideas of what this might be, but the story of these stories is far more interesting than one might think. Now, there's a lot more beyond these small points. My hope for the Accessible Faith Project is just that, a chance to make the best use not only of scholarship, archaeology, and historical insight, but to do so without getting into heavy jargon or circular debates. We can also learn how understanding has changed and throughout different periods in history, and it's a huge topic, but one that is definitely accessible to everyone. So if you want to explore this in ways that will expand your horizons and deepen your understanding, then come and join us on this journey by clicking on subscribe and that little bell icon, and you're set to go. And I'll see you next time on the Accessible Faith Project.